Hello, everybody. Hopefully, you're having a great week and start to the semester so far. My name is Mark. I'm going to be your instructor for the next 15 weeks. Um, yeah, first off, I'd like to say thank you very much for taking the class. Because of you, the class continues to go on, which is awesome. The digital field is something that's growing right now, and you kind of notice it no matter which field you're in. It could be from, you know, animation, children's book, even painting. Some people start using digital arts preliminary work before they start painting. So, yeah, thank you again for keeping the class going. Before we head on to the basics of Photoshop, I'd just like to remind everybody that if you don't have Photoshop yet, please do download it. It's free for you guys to use. You guys get a 1 year subscription through the Academy by going to your software key page under your home, I think home page, and then just request a key from Adobe through the Academy, and you'll get it right away. Now, for a Corel Painter, we're not actually going to go through it right now. We're going to go through Painter halfway down the semester, but it's kind of good for you guys to get it right away. One, because if you get Painter, the thing is, unlike the Photoshop where you get it right away, um, Painter, we get Painter through journeyed.com, which requires them to do some kind of a check to make sure that you guys are properly enrolled in the current semester and make sure that you guys are current students. One way to do that, once you purchase your Painter software, one way to do that is they require either an ID, a current class schedule, I believe, a copy of it, or a copy of your school transcript. So, and that takes a couple of days for that to clear. So, you might want to plan that out if you guys are end up going to get it maybe at the last minute. So, maybe plan that out a couple of days in advance. One thing I'd like to add about Painter is, unlike Photoshop, which gives you a 1 year subscription and then you have to renew it every year, and then when you're not a student anymore, once you graduate, then you can't renew it anymore. Once you purchase Painter, it's for you guys to keep. And the great thing is that I think the current price for Painter is $430, but through the Academy, you guys get it for $15. So take advantage of it. The current version is the 2019 version. You can get the older versions as well, but why would you, right? But yeah, get the 2019 version and yeah, get started on that. And also, along with the software, we'll talk about the hardware really quickly. For this class, I would like you to have some kind of tablet with a pen. It could be Wacom, it could be any of the other brands like Monoprice or Huon or any of the other ones out there that's available for you. It doesn't really matter as long as it connects to your computer, and we will be able to use Photoshop with it. I also myself use a Cintiq, a small, really small Cintiq, which is great. Which is the tablet with the screen on it. Those are pretty expensive. But if you are kind of want to diving into digital a little by little, I suggest getting one of the lower priced ones first, like starting with the higher end Intuos from Wacom, or go right ahead and get either a medium or a small Wacom. I believe Wacom Intuos. I believe is the current line. Yeah. So Wacom Intuos Pro. Excuse me about. So yeah, if you guys don't have a tablet yet, please do purchase one so that you can use it for the class. Alternatively, you can also use an actual tablet or a tablet hybrid like the Microsoft Surface Pro or an actual tablet like the iPad Pro. However, you're still going to have to use Photoshop, and there's no port for Photoshop on iPad right now. There is one for the for the Surface Pro, because it is an actual computer. But for the iPad Pro, you might want to use something like the AstroPad app, which allows you to mirror your computer, your Mac computer, to your iPad, and you could use the full desktop version of Photoshop. Now, let me get this out of the way before hopefully answer some of you guys' question. I actually don't mind which programs you guys are going to use. You could use ArtRage, even iPad programs like Procreate, and I said ArtRage already, and Autodesk Sketchbook Pro. Those kind of programs are great. I mean, there's no one way to do to create a beautiful illustration. There's no one way to do it. Clip Studio is another one. However, for the class, we are going to go over Photoshop and Painter mostly because those two are pretty much the standards in the industry right now. I mean, yes, again, all the other ones are amazing. They all work pretty similarly to Photoshop, but from experience and from what the Academy kind of figured, Photoshop and Painter are the ones that are used the most. So yeah, please do have the hardware and the softwares ready, or if you haven't already, get them ready for this first week so that you can get going on your first assignments for the class. As far as that goes, oh, last thing before you actually head into the actual demo, maybe I'm going to turn this into a two-part kind of thing, is video. One like a kind of like a workshop, but not an actual workshop, but just for you guys and me to meet up, maybe a couple of times every, let's say every 2 or 3 weeks. You guys could, go online, do some kind of a Google Hangout or Adobe Connect Hangout, and maybe do a face-to-face critique, and just so that we know that we're actually talking to real people and we could connect with other artists out there instead of having to do an online class and just kind of have this barrier because we don't actually see each other and we don't actually speak to each other in person. So I think like a little bit of a meeting, a little bit of a face-to-face with everybody, every single one of you guys. Hopefully you guys can make it, and one or two or all of them would benefit you guys. And we could do critiques. I could answer you guys' questions. You guys could kind of mingle amongst each other and see what you guys are each working on, see how you guys, what your work processes are. So yeah, hopefully that would be great. Let me get that started. And a side note to that, I will also be working on I will be the instructor rather of the workshop this semester, the digital painting workshop. It's going to be on Saturdays, that I know of. I'm not sure what time it is yet, but I'll make sure to let you guys know. And, I'll be recording it as well, but, it's the same thing as what we are doing for the classes, where you guys could just hop on and it's up to you if you guys find time to do so, and ask questions, watch my demos, and watch me, kind of create tutorials out of stuff. Like I'm going to do some environments and some portraits, and with the portraits, some skin tones, how to use the brushes, how to mix colors, how to actually color a black and white image, some matte painting, and so on. So yeah, hopefully you guys can make it for either the class hangouts or the workshops. I'll be posting those sometime in the future. So yeah, we are at the 9-minute mark of me just talking. So I am going to actually start with the basics of Photoshop, which again we are going to go through for the first half of the semester. So once you start Photoshop, first thing you want to do is create a brand new document. To create a brand new document, you go to File, New, or Command N. Hopefully your computer is a little bit faster than mine. Mine is a little bit an older iMac, so it might take a little bit. Oh, so here it is. And you document. Waiting for the window to pop up. So once the window pops up, you can either create something from your recents, or you can save or a brand new one from a template, or you can go right over here on the right side of the panel and type in the width, the height. You can change it either to inches, If you're doing prints, then you're probably going to be working in inches. You can do centimeters, millimeters, points, picoes, and pixels. So yeah, that is totally up to you. You could name your document already if you want, or you can do that when you save it. And of course, you can set up the resolution. RGB color mode, 8-bit, which is great. White background, that's totally fine. But make sure that when you're working with digital illustration, for a web, 150 resolution is okay. However, if you're doing something print-wise and you want a really nice quality to them, minimum 300 DPI is what you should be striving to do. Again, if you have an older computer, sometimes it lags a little bit because of all the extra pixels that it's working with. However, it's totally worth it. You're going to get a nice, crisp illustration out of it. Now, of course, you could work a little bit higher resolution, but minimum, and it's usually around 300 DPI. So let's say 8.5 by 11, standard note paper there, 300 resolution, and create. So it created a brand new document. It's untitled 2 because I didn't name it yet. Now, offhand, you're going to see the user interface. On the top here, you have all the menus. I'm working with a Mac, so a PC is going to look a little bit different. And some of the menus on a PC is going to look a little bit different as well. Excuse me. Oh, I forgot to mention, guys, I'm coming off of a bit of a cold. It's been kind of rough here in Dallas, so hopefully you guys don't mind a little bit of hoarseness there. I'm going to be pausing just in case I need to chug a bit of water. So yeah, so up here are going to be the menus, and on the left side, my left side, we're looking at to the left here, are going to be your tools. And then on the right are going to be your windows. Windows consist of your color palettes, your swatches, your navigators, and channels, paths, and then more importantly, the layers right over here, and the brushes. So the colors, layers, and then the brushes. Those are the three most important things you might want to get into before learning the other aspects of Photoshop, is to get used to those three things, because those are the basics to digital painting, which is your colors, where you pick the colors, the brushes that you use. I'm going to get into that on another video, like an extensive look into the brushes. But yeah, and the layers. Now you could turn these off and you could move them around if you want. You could take the colors out by dragging them out of the little area that they're in. You could totally mess with this however you want. You could, create a brand new setup or workspace as much as you want. You could create you could open up templates of pre-set up workspaces, or you could save your own. Let me just put that back in there. Now, if you accidentally X one of these out, you could go back to Window, and you could check those back in. Like here, the brushes is checked in. That's where the brushes are, the layers as well as the color. So yeah, these are pretty much the windows right over here. It's right under Windows. So let's get to tools. Tools are pretty self-explanatory if you've used with something like Procreate for the iPad or any other programs that are out there like ArtRage and Clip Studio. They're pretty similar as far as the way they work and what is actually contained in that toolbox towards the left side of the user interface. You got the Move tool, the Marquee tool, the Lasso tool. This is the Magic Wand tool. And if you hover over them in the brand new 2018, I believe that's the brand new Photoshop. If you hover over them, it tells you exactly what tool they are. Now for each tool, you're going to see, not for every tool, but for a lot of them, you're going to see a little arrow down at the lower right side of the toggle. If you hold down on it, if you press and hold, you're going to come up with brand new tools that are subcategories of that tool. Like here, the square marquee, you could select the circular elliptical marquee tool. Or if you go to, let's see, the paint bucket tool, hold on, and then that's where you find the gradient tool. Now, if you notice, once I picked on every single tool, let's go to the brush, because again, that's probably your most go-to tool, the brush tool, as well as the eraser tool. If you click on the brush tool, now the brush tool doesn't have any subcategories. It's its own important category, so it's right there. Once you click on any of the tools, let's just click on the brush tool, you're gonna open up the options bar. These options bar are unique to the tool that you are using. For example, if I go to the gradient tool here, it's going to show me where I could click on the gradients, what kind of gradient I want to use, a circular gradient, like a more simplified gradient, a bit of a choppy gradient. If I go to the brush tool, it's going to give me a bunch of options. The first one right over here is basically what this represents. The first tool here represents the tool itself. The second one here for the brush is the brush options. So once you click it, this is where you can choose which brush you want to use. I'll get into brushes a little bit more later, as I mentioned earlier. It needs its own video because it's really extensive. However, it's also kind of simple at the same time. Again, I'll get into that a little bit later on in a separate video. Hopefully, I'll either make it sometime this week or next week. So yeah, this is where you choose your brushes. And then the next one here, skip over that real quick because this is where you actually, this one right here is your brush settings. Again, we'll get into that. That's where you kind of mess with the brushes, mess with the size, the spacing, create a brand new brush even if you'd like, or a brand new variant of the brush. Excuse me. The next one is the mode. The mode, there's two modes here. There's the brush mode and there's also the layer modes. I'll get into that because that's its own separate thing as well, and it's great to use for something like coloring or adding color to something. So we'll totally get into that once we get into the brushes. And then here's the opacity. Now, the reason why I want you guys to get a digital tablet is because you guys have a pen pressurized a pen with a pressure sensitivity to it. Now, pressure sensitivity. Let me side note this. Let me just create a brand new layer real quick. Pressure sensitivity is done by pressing your pen into the tablet. Right here. See the little variance to it? Now, if you don't have that, if you're working with a mouse, it's always going to look like this. And you're never going to get a really nice illustration out of that. So please do. Weirdly enough, a couple of students from the past went through the whole semester using no pen tablet. And, it really showed, unfortunately. So, yeah, it's something that's totally needed in the class. So, yeah. Here, next up is the opacity. Opacity basically allows you to play with the transparency or opacity. Now, the reason why it's not working is because I didn't turn on the opacity toggle. You have to turn this on to play with the opacity. When you turn this off, let's say 100%, turn it off, then you're basically on inking mode where the opacity is turned off. So now you have the full force of the pen transparency on. So it's 100% opaque. Next up is flow. It basically determines how much of your brush dab is added in. Let me show you guys. So unlike Corel Painter or Procreate, where the computer kind of creates some kind of technical thing, I'm not even sure, where it uses the software to create or mimic traditional media. In Photoshop, everything is made out of a dab. Let me see if I can illustrate that. Let me use a brand new color here. So everything in Photoshop is made out of this. No matter what brush you use, the shape of the brush itself, that's one dab. how close they are to each other creates how smooth the whole illustration is. So this whole line right here is made out of a bunch of different dabs really close together. So that's basically how Photoshop creates line and creates, paint. You can actually see that here. See how smooth this is? If you turn down the spacing, every little thing here is made out of a dab. And once it gets closer, it gets smoother and smoother and smoother. So that's basically what the brushes are made of. And with flow, you can have 100% flow, or if you turn it down to 1, then you're going to see all the little tiny dabs. If we kind of go slower, they're not as spaced together as they were when the flow is at 100%. Now this one's an airbrush. I'll get into that a little bit later. And here is smoothing. Smoothing was introduced last year in Photoshop, and I know some of you guys are probably comic book artists, and this is something that people wanted in Photoshop for a long time, but it wasn't until I think the 2018 version where they finally introduced it, and it was kind of a godsend. Well, before, we had, for people who are doing line art or even creating scripts, like lettering and scripts in Photoshop or digitally, you had to learn how to really make sure that you're not shaking, or make sure that your hand is stable, and also using the tablet itself. That no matter what kind of tablet you have, Wacom had a stabilization feature where you could use it to kind of stabilize your brush strokes, where instead of doing this, and you're going to see a little bit of a jagged nature to it. Let me see if we can zoom in real quick. No matter how much I try, I'm still getting a little bit of a jagged nature to it. That's because, my hands are constantly moving, and also sometimes there's a little bit of lag. Again, it depends on how brand new, how new your computer is. There's going to be a bit of lag, and it's going to create a bit of a jitter. Now, the thing with smoothing is, it now allows you to create some sort of drag. And the drag creates like a, actually, it creates a little bit of a lag to create smoothness, oddly enough. So, let me put the smoothing at 100%. Now, actually, let me go back to smoothing at 0%. This is basically freehand. I'm freehanding everything. I'm gonna write my name. It looks okay, because it's years and years of practice. But smoothing now allows you to create really smooth line. So now I could do really fancy things. You notice that drag? So that's basically what smoothing is, and thank you Photoshop for finally introducing it. So now if you guys are doing line art, if you guys are doing comic books, this is an amazing thing, because now you're going to get a lot of stability and a lot of control with your lines. People have done it before, but this feature definitely makes it a whole lot easier. So that's smoothing. And here is where you control the smoothing. We'll get into that again in the brush strokes area. And then this one right here is another really important thing. It's called the pen pressure. This feature coordinates with your tablet. When you have it off, let me just turn the smoothing back off, you're not going to get any pen pressure. You're not going to get variety in lines. Or if you have opacity on, you're not going to get much variety in transparency and opacity. So if you make sure you have this on, so that you can coordinate with how hard you press your pen onto the tablet to create those lines. Here I'm pressing really lightly. The harder I press, the thicker it gets. The thickest it gets is pretty much the size of your pen. So if I make the pen a little bit larger, light pen, hard as I can. Light pen, hard as I can. As you notice, a little bit jaggy there. So if I turn on smoothing with the pen pressure, you get a smoother line. So yeah, that's basically the gist of the brush. Now, another thing with the Wacom tablets, especially, is that you get a little bit of an eraser feature in the butt of the pen. I guess if you turn your pen over, you basically turn that into an eraser. Or you could just click on the erase tool and then use that as an eraser. And the erase tool has very similar options as the brush have. You can have a smoothing to it, opacity. You can the pen pressure is on it, and the flow. So the pen pressure of the pen and the eraser are pretty much intertwined with each other, and you are gonna be switching between those two. The shortcut key for the brush is B, and the eraser is an E. So if you want to switch between two, if you don't like using the butt of your pen or the eraser of your pen, or turning that pen over, then just switch between the E and the B key. We're running out of time in this video because or else I can't upload it. So I'm going to cut it off here and see you in part 2 where I'm going to discuss the layers.